I was trying to put into practice everything I'd learned in the 20 years in my career, you know, and I was having to do that because I had the miles on the clock for me at that point. My body was, you know, it had been through the ringer, and my shoulder was always an issue. My ankles were always an issue at this point. I was managing them well. I wasn't overtraining. I was in a good place mentally. I was enjoying the process, really soaking in the process of preparing for a competition one last time and really giving Sergey full reign of my gymnastics, you know. For a long time, I'd been so scared that nobody else was ever going to care about my gymnastics as much as me that I tried to almost take control of every single aspect of my career and my life, and particularly my gymnastics. You know, I was trying to be my own nutritionist, agent, strength and conditioning coach. I was setting my program, and it actually really helped giving that responsibility to Sergey because it took a lot of pressure off my shoulders. So I would just turn up to the gym like I would when I was 16, and Sergey'd say, right, Sam, this is the program for today. This is how many routines you got. This is what I think you should do for the week, and I'd just follow it. Yeah, and it's funny, right? Coincidentally, that worked really well and my training was going brilliantly. But towards the back end of August, physically, I was starting to struggle a bit. You know, I'd been doing 3 or 4 months of build up to this point. I still was on the building site every morning, you know, and it is not easy work. My brother used to laugh at me because I really like numbers, and I used to count how many wheelbarrows it'd take to fill a skip. So I knew it like 137 to fill a skip. So if we filled like 1 or 2 skips that morning, I'd be knackered by the time I got to the gym. And towards the end of that build up, my body was really feeling it. And I went in on a Saturday morning, and the main goal really was to do all round. I just thought if I could, every gymnast starts off as an all rounder, every single one. So when you go into a gym for the very first time, you start on all the apparatus, whether that's in men's gymnastics or women's gymnastics. So in men's, you start learning the floor, pommel horse, rings, vault, parallel bars and high bar. And everybody's dream is to be an all-around champion. That's what you aim for. And whether it's because, you know, you have injuries or whatever circumstances it might be, then people start to specialise. But for me, it had always been about the all-round. And I just thought, God, to retire at 28, compete in the all-round, that would just be such an amazing achievement, personal achievement for me, after all the injuries and setbacks I'd had. But my body was struggling, and I went in on a Saturday morning. We were doing a control competition. It was just 2 weeks from the British Championships, that final competition. We went on the floor, and I did a tumble, and I just tweaked my ankle and rolled my ankle, and I knew straight away, and I walked off, and I could tell all my teammates at the time, the other lads in the gym could tell, and I said, Sergey, I've got to go home. It's not good. I'm going to have to go and rest it this weekend and see what it's like. I iced it up. I did everything I possibly could that weekend to kind of rest it, get it elevated. But I knew that it wasn't going to be great. And it wasn't my bad ankle either. It was my good ankle. The ligaments on my bad ankle, they're almost like Iron Man. They're not going to break. They're made out of carbon fibre. But those ones on my right, they're all my own ligaments. So if I tweak it, and ligament injuries take a long time. And so I knew. So it was really difficult. I tried to walk. I couldn't run, couldn't walk, couldn't land on it. My shoulder was starting to struggle a bit at this point with the load. And I basically made the really smart decision that I'm really proud of, the rational, logical decision at that point. Look, I've done all this work to get to this point, to compete in my final competition. My family have all bought tickets. I could either push through this and try and do 6 apparatus and end up competing on none of the events, or I could make a sensible, smart decision, cut back on the events and make sure I get to the start line and I get the chance to put my hand up one more time and feel that feeling of competing in a competition. So I made that decision. Luckily, I was able to learn from the mistakes I'd made throughout my career, and I decided floor and vault were just not going to happen. And if I couldn't do floor or vault and I wasn't going to do 6 apparatus, there was no point me doing rings, because rings put so much strain through my shoulder. It was always a risk. And I was at this point thinking about the rest of my life and the rest of what I was going to do with it. You know, I want to be able to throw a ball, or if I have kids, I want to be able to lift them up. And my shoulder has had a lot of injuries, you know, over the course of my career. I didn't want to do any permanent damage to it. So I decided not to do the rings. That meant I was going to do the pommel horse, parallel bars and the high bar, which were the more technical events, and they were the ones I was doing the highest level of gymnastics on. So yeah, I managed these 2 injuries going into that competition.